Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Straight Outta BS podcast. Thank you again for sharing the videos, liking them. Let's keep getting out in the algorithm. Thank you so much to my Patreon members. Links are in the description if you're interested in contributing to the podcast in that way. It's not expected. It is greatly appreciated, though, and everything goes back into the podcast. I want to do a moment of silence for the person still suffering with like intrusive thoughts, anything like that. So on the count of three, I'm going to do a moment of silence. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for that. And without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce my guest for the day. Go ahead and introduce yourself and where you went and what years.
Hey, I'm Marie Boland. I went to Academy at Ivy Ridge in Ogdensburg, New York, which was shut down in 2009. I attended April 2005 through, till, I guess, December 2006.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Okay. And
I'm originally from Michigan.
Originally from Michigan, okay. I want to go a little bit like what, do you know what led up to going to the program or being sent to the program?
Yeah, so I have always been somebody who has to defend myself no matter what. Even if I have low self-esteem, it's just the matter of like justice. And I always want to be like, make sure people understand me before some punishment is given, you know? So my parents were like grounding me. And I always fought for myself to make sure that I wasn't being abused, and they were constantly trying to abuse me. So they were escalating punishments, escalating the distance of emotion that they would give to me to try to like not positively reinforce my rebellious attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And all it did was make me feel like I wasn't a human to them. They had no idea who any of my friends were, and I constantly tried to like have friends in my life, and they just didn't care about me personally because they always have an agenda of like, she's not doing something right in our eyes, therefore she's not going to receive anything good from us until that's not a problem anymore. And with that all being happening, just that dynamic. By the way, it was my real father and my stepmom, who I'd had since I was 6, who was a very selfish lady, always trying to get my dad on her side preemptively without me even having like an agenda. Like she would just like try to get him to not care about me as much as he cared about her, which is a weird attitude. But my mom died when I was 5.5. There was nobody else to step in and protect me from this dynamic where she's trying to control him to not care about me, and he's falling for it and punishing me on her behalf, which is annoying, because my relation with my dad was kind of better before all of that. Anyways, so with all that going on with the dynamic, my other side of the family that my biological mom was from, cared about me greatly. Christmas 2004, 5 months before I got sent away, 4 months before I got sent away, my parents staged an intervention. Christmas Day, we're gonna, now that you're at this house, this is where we are proposing that you live. And we know for a fact, as a 17-year-old, I was 17 and 7 months old when my parents sent me away. 17 and 5 months old. I had just turned 17. They said, you can live here as long as you're going to school. There is a high school 5 minutes away. She'll take you there. You can take the bus. You can transfer to school here for your senior year of high school. We know your parents are abusing you. And I tried to defend them all the time because it really scared me, like not having the control of I guess I find it hard to relinquish control to acknowledge I'm in danger when I'm in danger. I like to feel more powerful and keep my enemies close because I don't like to acknowledge that I was ever in harm's way. And because I think that it would just start like too much stress and depression for me to deal with when I had to go to school and I had to like function. So I would constantly defend my parents, but they were like, look, we've seen how they treat your brother so much better than you. We've seen how they mock you to your face. They keep you from seeing us who love you. There's something going on in that family, and we know that your dad has shown signs of physical abuse, and we want to keep you safe. So think about it, pray about it, but you're welcome to live here. And I was immediately interested, but I'm a very prayerful person. I grew up going to church, and I actually still embrace that side of my life. So even back then, even though I was like desperate to be out of an abusive home life, I still prayed about it for a couple months, and I decided on yes, I would move out. As I was filing through all of my childhood belongings and deciding what to keep and what to go, in case I had to like make a run for it and just have all my stuff one night, my parents were starting more drama like a couple weeks leading up to me getting taken away. They staged a fight where I didn't start it. They were just like trying to get me to yell at them like they do a lot. And they said, if you continue to be disrespectful, we're going to tell your karate school, your place of employment, and your school that you're not behaving and you're disrespectful. And like they were going to smear campaign. They were threatening me to smear campaign. And they said, if you don't do things the way we like, you're going to get sent to a school for a military school, a military boot camp, which I pictured being like a 2-week thing. And I was like, military, that sounds useful, you know, but I obviously was very upset, especially with the smear campaign and my name in karate, which was, I had a long-standing good name. I'd just gotten my 3rd degree black belt from the age of almost 7 to the age of 17. I had worked really hard for my 3rd degree black belt. I had lots of friends and the respect of all the elders at that karate school. It really upset me. My hobby was running, so I went for a run that night after that argument. This was 2 weeks before I got sent away. I knew I was going to move out after my semester ended, which was still a month away. And this was really stressful for me to process, that they were going to smear campaign me. And I had like a part-time job at a restaurant, and all of this was very upsetting. So I like ran for a couple miles in the rain in the nighttime. When I got back, the door was locked. And so I just decided to stay at my friend's house. When I came back, my parents didn't even question where I was. They acted like everything was fine. Like they woke up from that argument being completely catty to just like pretending like everything was good. It was the weirdest sensation of feeling like accepted and calm in my house. For 2 weeks, it was very calm. All was fine. They were preparing to blindside me. So they didn't want me to run away during this time. They had already made the decision that they were going to send me away by that point. I was working in the yard for like a week, helping them pulling barbed wire out from the back where deers were getting caught. Like I literally was just like putting in a lot of sweat work and like grunt equity into their house and their household. I thought I was being like an all-star kid because they were finally letting me be around them and they weren't like horrible to me. And I was like, we're doing a lot better now. I'm really surprised that they continued to send me away after this all happened, because all they had to do was stop approaching me to get up in my grill for them to stop getting burnt. I had really strong boundaries as a kid, and they did not accept that about me. I've never been a pushover. I've always been like a leader, like not a quiet leader. Like I've always been a very verbal person. I love to articulate my thoughts and my value systems. I love having conversations with people. And these aren't people that wanted conversation. They wanted you to do what you were told, and they wanted you to believe what they said about you to your face without question. So, about a week before I got sent away, we were asked in English class to write an essay about a how to. And it was supposed to be a skill that no one else in the class knew. And I chose the topic thinking my teachers were safe, of how to effectively run away from home. And I wrote a really good essay on it, and I thought it was going to be inspiring for some reason. I didn't see it as that weird that I was planning to run away. I just thought it was like, I don't know, for me, it was a healthy thing to do. But instead of my teacher when I submitted this essay asking, is everything okay at home? She immediately just like went to the school and then had my parents informed. So my parents knew that I was going somewhere safe because I had mentioned in the letter I was going to live with an aunt who I trusted and loved. All the family supported it. Instead of saying, hey, how's it going? Are you feeling safe? She just reported it. So my stepmom, who is the instigator of all things terrible, just took that information and immediately made my dad start signing off on the paperwork to send me to Ivy Ridge. Now, a quick, like 30-second background of why it was Ivy Ridge. We later have found that there were about 5 kids within like a 2 to 3 year span of me getting sent away, all sent to Ivy Ridge, and or some program very similar. And there was a mole in the church that we were all associated with that was telling parents to send them. These people, for some reason, are still actively doing that. Like 18 years later, they're still recommending kids get sent to these places. Anyways, to go back to my story, my parents scheduled a dentist appointment for me to get a tooth fixed. It was for Friday morning at 6 a.m. We didn't really use Google back then in 2005, so I didn't Google the time that the dentist opened. I just believed them. I got in the car April 22nd, Friday morning, and I had a 10-page paper due that I had worked on for 2 nights in a row. I was exhausted, and I had a play to work on that weekend. I was very busy and very involved in my community. My dad puts me, like, I go in the car. My dad takes a cell phone call. It's only a 5-minute drive to the dentist, but my dad gets a call and he eerily says, yes, yep, be there soon. We get there and there's no lights on in the dentist's office, and I immediately knew it was closed and something felt wrong because my dad turned to me and said, do you see that car parked next to us 2 spots over? They're going to take you on a tour of a facility and you're going to come back when you're 18. So when he said tour, he was just like misusing a script that they gave him because he literally gave it away that he was intending for me to be gone for 7 months. The weird part is in the paperwork that I found, they signed me up for the full year. So they didn't even intend for me to come back. You can sign up for 3 months or for a year for like an 8 to 10% discount. So even knowing that I could leave and they wouldn't get any money back, they sent it for a year. They're idiots. Anyways, I see these people next to me. There's a man and a very overweight lady. My dad doesn't know these people. He said, you're going to go. And I was like panicking, but I said, I need my guitar and I need my calendar because I write everything I do every day in my calendar for good memories. And I need my guitar because music makes me survive in this world. And he said he wouldn't. The people came, I started crying. The people came to my side of the door, put me into the back seat of their car, which was childproof locked. They popped the trunk. My dad popped his trunk. They brought a big suitcase from their trunk over to the kidnapper's trunk, closed it, and snickered at my dad and said, you can say goodbye if she'll let you. As if I was like they were assuming I was like a very troubled teen. That's everything leading up to it.
Okay. I was going to ask if you got transported or not, but you kind of answered that. So, what happened after you just continue talking about, like, what happened after you got transported? Like, what happened? Like, first of all, did they handcuff you, do that whole thing? Did they say you want to do the easy way or the hard way? Did they do that whole jig?
The reason they did it from the dentist office is because I know how to run. I know karate. My dad, for some reason, really believed in my karate abilities to have taken me to some rural dentist office where there's no homes within a running distance and mostly country fairgrounds that you can drive into. So they would have, even if they were unable to chase me on foot, they would have driven and found me. This is actually, for me, the most traumatic part of the story is they told me that if I had resisted, they would have put me in handcuffs that were just plastic string zip ties. That was a veiled threat. Immediately when they saw I was crying, they mocked me and They stopped at the nearest superstore to get a tissue box so that I could cry into the tissues. I find it traumatic because like I said, I didn't want to admit when I wasn't in a safe situation. And I blamed myself for not making the risky choice to try to escape the car or to try to ask for help. And it wasn't until very recently, maybe 4 months ago, that I was journaling because I kept having nightmares, even 18 years later from this moment, that I was being chased down again to be taken back there. What I realized through the journaling was that after about 10 minutes straight of journaling, it finally occurred to me, my instincts told me to be calm and to carry on and to not resist them for my safety. Besides, I didn't really know the inherent risk of going to this program. I didn't know what it was going to be like. I thought I was going to be living in an apartment, doing my own laundry, getting meds at the pharmacy myself. Like, I thought I was going to be an adult going to school. So I had no idea what was going to happen. So I don't blame myself anymore for not trying to run. Thankfully, I didn't. But yeah, I, for a long time, wished that I tried. They almost turned around a couple times during the 11-hour drive from Michigan to upstate New York through Ohio. They had to drive. And on the 11-hour drive, I cried probably 10 of the 11 hours straight, like sobbing. And they almost turned around twice because as they were asking me questions and I unveiled some information, they realized they weren't transporting a girl that they would typically be transporting. They really believed I was innocent. And I mean, within an hour of driving, they looked at each other and were like, should we turn around? They said that out loud. Like, they felt bad, but they continued. They knew what they were doing was wrong. We got there, and as you know, they do strip searches and they get your weight. They yell at you a lot. And I got there probably at like 9:30, 10 at night. Well, I guess not that late. We left at like 7. Probably got there at like 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. And then they had me wait, and the lady in charge like just yelled at me for no reason. They did a strip search in the dorms and mocked me for having Christian stuff. They still looked for drugs on me. They emptied my purse out. They looked at my little statue of Saint Therese, who is a saint that sends you flowers if you ask her for prayers. Like roses will just like show up in your life. I held on to that statue the whole 11 hours to try to keep myself feeling good and okay. They didn't let me keep that. I think they sent it back home. Anyways, after the strip search, they buddied me up. They told me that I'll be here for probably a year and that the only way I'll be able to escape is if I use the point system well and don't break any rules. They said you can earn 18 points a day maximum and that it takes like 3,000 points to get up to a level where you have the privilege to talk to people. It was literally like I was doing math in my brain until I fell asleep, crying myself to sleep in an upper bunk bed. That night, they had the fluorescent lights on in all the hallways. You couldn't close the door, so this light was shining right in my face. And I had my eyes open as I was doing math, and the guard that night came through and said, "Close your eyes," and like really kind of popped out at me all of a sudden. I didn't know the rules yet, so I guess if your eyes are open, even though there's light literally shining in your face, you can get in trouble and lose points. So I quickly learned that my background of being Christian and the fact that I wasn't that bad of a kid at all, in fact, I was a good kid, got me really bad social standing with my group. They were like a ragtag bunch, and I loved them all. I loved all of them, but I was mistreated by the girls I lived with verbally. And because we're not allowed to talk, and they were talking anyways, I wasn't allowed to speak out against it without getting the whole group in trouble. So for 3 months, I was harassed for being Christian. In every way, every context, people would say stuff under their breath and make me feel stupid. I right away realized I wouldn't be able to go to church when I did this. When I went there and I asked the people who were in charge for the time of day, I explained that I'm a Catholic and I go to Mass every single Sunday without fail, and that it's a sin for me to miss Mass, and I'm really concerned. And all they did was look at each other and then looked at me and said, "You know what communion is, right? Wine. You're asking for alcohol? Yeah, we know what you're doing. We're going to send you back to your group now." Like, completely invalidated me. And not only did I not have my guitar, like I considered myself like a singer-songwriter in high school. I couldn't even sing. I couldn't even dance. We had to there was like 2 outfits, and you had to walk in line. You couldn't look around you. You had to keep your eyes forward all the time. And the worst part about that whole place was that it was freezing cold year round. And I only had one corduroy jacket to keep myself warm outside, but inside, nothing. We had to wear skirts, and I was freezing all the time, the entire time. So that was my introduction to that place. That's what happened after I got sent away right away.
Okay. Did they give you any sort of rule, or they kind of went over the rules with you a little bit, but did they give you like an actual written rule manual? Did they go over rules with you? Did they like talk about anything with you besides the fact that you have to earn points?
Somebody told me informal rules. There was no written rules. The rules were not written down. Even if they were, the infraction names were too succinct to explain what the rule you're breaking was. Rude manners, disrespect to peer, blatant rule violation. These are all different levels of corrections. You can get and neglect of property. You can get these things for interrupting. You can get these things for talking too loud when it is your turn to talk. You can get these things for leaving your water bottle. You can get a very severe correction if you leave your pen in a room. A pen. Everyone has to be strip searched if you leave your pen. Huh?
It's neglect, right?
It's worse. If you leave your pen, it's considered a note passing.
Oh, okay, I see how they did that. Okay.
If you leave your pen in the room and it's not accounted for, you forget to turn it back into the pen bag, everybody has to be strip searched because they want to know whose pen it was, and if they find it on you, which this never happened. Like, nobody ever had a pen on them on purpose, because it makes it look like you're trying to write notes to each other. Anyways, there's a lot of rules that were unspoken, and it was very difficult to follow the rules. Even if I wanted to, I would break them for like the first year. It takes a year because a lot of the rules are made up. On the spot.
Yeah, and they can be interpreted in any, like they can be like, you can interpret any sort of like disrespect to peer. That could be anything, literally.
It can.
Be, I think it sounds disrespectful. So since I think it sounds disrespectful, did they say like did they do the whole, because the place I went, they'd be like, hey, self-correct? And if you didn't, if this word out of your mouth wasn't self-correct, all right, staff corrected then.
Yep. I always self-corrected because I really wanted to go home.
Yeah, I spent my first year in and out of intervention and study hall. And did they have a solitary confinement and study hall there?
Yep, they had both. And you go to solitary even if you're sick, something out of control, they still treat you like you did something wrong, even if you were literally just too sick to function.
Yeah, they left me in there for 3 days.
Yeah, they left you in there?
Yeah. They fed you and all that shit. But
yeah.
You're like in there and you can't see light, like the windows are blacked out. Yeah. Pretty fucked up. Did they?
So I made the goal to not go in there, not just because of how you get treated, but if you're in intervention or if you're sick, you don't get points for the day. So I'd force myself to just like stay awake and follow the rules as best that I could, but you were just existing there. There was no real enrichment, no education. And I would love to share some of my file about the background of what happened in this process between the time my parents decided to send me away and the time I was there. The paperwork that they had to fill out was insane. The paperwork that they signed away all of my rights, and they didn't even question the quality of the program. They just immediately gave all of their trust. And for somebody who they've forced to earn their trust and love my entire life, to just give their trust over to this organization was really cruel. My parents constantly asserted in letters that I was there for disrespect and because I was not tolerable in the house anymore, that they knew I could have just moved out with my aunt, and they chose to do this over a matter of control to keep me from talking about their abuses. So I did a synopsis of some of the paperwork by reading it all through and then highlighting some key points to my cousin. And I would like to share that now on my screen share. I have some of the paperwork here. It looks like this. It's just like a bunch of pages of this. And you have to sign your like initials. So like my dad signed his initials like on every portion. My dad likes to read, so he wouldn't have read through this and not understood. They only signed the paperwork one day before my transportation. So these schools allow you to operate with very little planning. Like they just want you, like everybody said, they crave desperate families. So anyways, I'd like to share that now on my screen.
Okay.
Okay. So this is my cousin Carly I was messaging. This was a couple months ago that I read over all this paperwork. It took me about a year before I wanted to do it. I just wanted to burn these files with all my might. But I told her I have all the enrollment paperwork of my parents to Ivy Ridge. They authorize no retaliation for unauthorized staff acts towards students. My parents relinquished any school's responsibility if I was harmed, and even mentions in connection to illness from food services, which immediately they tried to feed me raw bacon and curdled milk. And I asked them to be exempted from that, and they said no, and everything's fine. My parents relinquished my rights knowing I'd not necessarily be going to be getting valid credits or even teachers through that place. My parents signed off on allowing physical intervention, including restraints, including but not limited to the purposes they illustrated they could be used for. So my parents knew people could just harm their kid for any reason. My parents knew me so poorly. I circled and read the opinion that I had, and my stepmom's opinion was penned in black. So my cousin later kind of goes over this and says, actually, even my parents didn't give that negative of reviews of my overall life. It was only authority, my relationship in relation to my parents, that they marked as a 1, very negative. So she thinks my parents could have even reflected on this page alone and realized so much was positive. If you see the circled in black, I find offensive because I worked really hard to be a good kid, and I circled a lot of 7s and 8s because I really genuinely believe I put in all my effort into all these areas of life. My parents told on the form that I was 5'4". I'm 5'6.5", and I had been all of high school. I know the height of like everyone I care about, but especially if it were my child, I'd probably know their height. So that just felt, for me, out of all these things, that felt like the most angering. It's like, if you're going to be the one to claim I'm so bad, at least know more about me. So my parents weren't left in the dark about the inherent risks of the program. I was able to find in Help at All Costs, or it was something like that. I think you know that book.
Yep,
Help
that's
at Any Cost. Chapter 5, it was literally talking about an almost adult that got sent away. Really good kid in general. The parents didn't like him. He got sent away and then was convinced to stay past the 18th birthday, but then the family intervened and brought him home. That's what my family would have done if they knew where I lived or if they knew where I was. But I was there for 20 months without anyone knowing. Anyways, I decided I didn't really want to see them anymore. Already 1 month into the program, they couldn't afford it, and they started pulling funds that they have saved for college. After 10 months in the program, they actually admitted to the person in charge, "We don't feel that Marie will ever live with us again. Not even sure if she will have a relationship with a male." I thought that that was really mean of them to say, because they're basically saying, like, "We don't even think she'll ever find love. Like, apart from this family, I don't even think she's destined to find love." I didn't even know that that was their attitude about me at the time. I thought that they always wanted whatever problem that they thought I had. I always thought that maybe they were sending me to the program because even if they were wrong, that at least they loved me enough to see me through to have a better future. That's what I thought, Even if they're wrong, they still want me to be in a better place. Nope. They just wanted to be right. They wanted to silence me, and they didn't even believe I was capable of being in a loving relationship.
That's pretty sad.
So, yeah.
How many levels were there?
There were 6.
Okay, did you have to vote up when you got what level? At what point would you have to vote up? At what level? Because for us, it was for level 4. Or I think it was for 3. We had 3. We had 1, 2, 3, 3 stars. And then we had 4, 5, 6, and you had to fucking vote up for 3 stars, and 4, and 5, and 6. I never got 6, but I got 5.
Yeah.
So there was 6. Which one did you have to vote up for?
That's about the same for me. I think you had to vote up for 3 to get the watch and the ability to wear your hair in a braid or in a bun and not just a braid. And then upper level 4, you had to vote up as well. I think level 3, you voted up. But
So it's either 3 or 4. Because the only reason we only did 3 stars, I don't know why they even had 3 stars. It was like an addition off of 3. It was fucking stupid. But anyways, so there were 6 levels. Did you end up graduate? Did you end up getting, like, how high a level did you get?
So I kept working around because when I turned 18, they said they will literally disown me as their daughter. They will no longer consider me their daughter if I don't graduate the program. They didn't say finish as far as you can. They said graduate. I'm like, I don't think you know what that means. I've seen people graduate. They're really bad people that are graduating this thing. And a lot of them get sent back. And I'm living with these people. I see what they're like. The program doesn't do anything. Like, I think you're putting graduation on a pedestal. And they thought that comment was so disrespectful to their intelligence. And they said they dug their heels in the ground further. And so they wanted me to graduate despite running out of money. They only offered me the option of 1 month of rent in an apartment and 2 weeks of groceries if I left, which is basically like leaving me on the street. Because, I mean, if I were to like work at a restaurant or something right off the bat, they didn't even give me access to like my savings or anything. Like they were just like, goodbye forever. And that was really scary. In addition, I would have moved out after 7 months in the program and gone in with my aunt, except my parents were very manipulative. They told a married in aunt, not like my mom's brother, but actually his wife, "Can you write Marie a letter as to why she shouldn't trust that family?" And they made her like talk about like some details about my grandpa that I never knew. And they tried to paint my whole family in a bad light because of the case of how bad my grandpa was to them. It was a very sick campaign to keep me separated from my aunt who loved me very much and wanted the best for me. She said, "You shouldn't trust these people. They're mentally ill and they make all these emotional, crazy decisions. And a bunch of them are alcoholics." And like, it was just like a bunch of just manipulation. And it really scared me because I didn't know what was right. And
Yeah.
it manipulated me to stay another year. When you ask about did I graduate, I got to level 5 or 6. I got to a point where I would have been fine to graduate. I would have been in the clear. The thing is that happened though, my parents decided at the last minute they didn't want to do any of the work of PC3, which is the graduation seminar. And they didn't want to spend money for me to go to California with them. So they decided to fly me home instead of graduating, which means I was stripped of the ability to do all of the upper level graduation activities that everybody looks forward to. I literally got none of the honors and I did all the blood, sweat, and tears of it. Nobody celebrated my completion of the program. It was very upsetting. And yeah, my parents were just like, no, we're not going to pay for anything. It basically felt like they were saying, you're not worth it.
Yeah, I was actually the last person to graduate from the place I went before I got shut down. Because I was at a certain point, there was only 2 of us that graduated, and we were the very last people to graduate before that place got shut down. And I'm glad I got the experience, but it was also very different than, like, they changed it up. Like, the graduation ceremony was still, like, it was still probably one of my most treasured experiences there, but at the same time, it was different throughout the years, like, because they had to keep on like changing the way they did things and stuff like that. But I'm sorry you didn't get to experience that. What was their graduation ceremony? What did they do?
They had a big rally and everybody would like honor each person, and they had like really nice words and like memories, and they took a ton of pictures. They went on adventures all around town. At least once a week they were going on adventures. They even swam in the river and like did really fun things, and it was really upsetting to see that they were all making friends in solidarity. And the morning of graduation I got sent to the airport by myself. It was just sad. I felt very neglected and abandoned my entire experience there. And in a way, you would think it would make me more independent, but all it did was make me feel so abandoned in a way that like I didn't want people to know how abandoned I felt. So I've always been overjoyed to see people, very loud and boisterous when I get excited to see people I know and love. I love people really quick and hard. Um, and I just try not to let it show how difficult it is when I'm not included in stuff. And I think even though I try to have an attitude that nobody's intentionally leaving me out of stuff, I think I subconsciously behave in a way that makes people not want to invite me to stuff. I still haven't figured out what that is, but somebody at work once said, "It seems like you're so much because you were locked in a closet for 20 months." Like, no wonder you're so rambunctious and have such a zest for life that like very few people can handle, because you know what it's like to have like no opportunity to enjoy anything. And it was so spot on. I felt really validated that somebody could pinpoint the quirkiness of my energy to something that they felt a lot of compassion for me about. Instead of being like, "Wow, what did you eat for breakfast?" It was like, "This makes a lot of sense. You were locked away." That made me really happy.
I'm glad that somebody said that. That's a good thing. So you got to level 5, and so level 4 was upper levels. What did that entail? Like, did you go to a different part of the, or first of all, like, what was the layout of the facility?
There was girls' dorms and guys' dorms. There were 2 levels of the girls' dorms. for most of the time I was there, it was all on one side. So all the upper levels were upstairs, all the lower levels were downstairs.
Okay.
And I liked upper levels a lot because I could talk to the girls, and I got a really big interest in ministry or like helping people from all the conversations I had illegally on lower levels during the nighttime. We would like push the bunk beds slightly away from the wall and like talk to each other on the wall side very quietly.
That's what
And a lot of the girls from the bottom bunk would like talk up, and a lot of them were 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 years younger than me, experiencing rape, experiencing having been introduced to drugs really early, experiencing like anorexia and panic attack disorders and really serious, troubling things. And until they shared that with me, I would have had no idea what they were struggling with. Because these are girls that smile a lot. These are girls that are they love to laugh. And they have passions, and like one girl loved like drawing, and another girl liked designing clothes, and like on Sundays they would like sketch, and it was really cute. So like I had no idea these girls were carrying as much weight as they were. And it made me like know that deep conversations are to be had, and I can barely like have a normal conversation until I want to like make sure everyone's okay by the end of it. So it made me, I think, for like 10 years after that, I was like pretty oriented to like get down to the bottom and talk to people about really deep stuff, and pretty frustrated by small talk because that small sample size I had so many deep conversations with. I assumed everybody had a big struggle, and I think I turned a lot of people off because I was trying to like be the savior, but I genuinely still root for the underdog. Because I didn't, like I said, like I didn't want to see myself as being in a dangerous situation over there. I just wanted to see it as an opportunity to minister to people. And it wasn't until 3 years ago at the rally with Paris Hilton protesting Provost School that I remembered the feeling I had at that facility. And the primary overriding feeling that I had there the entire time I was there was that I wasn't safe. These people, like, they were so erratically leading, like, the groups that at any moment you could be in danger and you would have no way to protect yourself. You were locked into this place. They were given free rein to do whatever they want, to say whatever they want to you, to punish you however they see fit, and like single you out for things that aren't right. And I just started crying so much when Paris was like, I went to several of these things. I'm so sorry you guys did too. And something she said in the first like couple minutes just broke me into tears because Paris Hilton in person is actually very tiny. She's not short, but she's like small, and she has a small voice. And for her to say she was thrown, oh my gosh, like thrown as this tiny brittle person, like it made me so sad. And it gave me perspective that like I was just as vulnerable. I was a child, I was a brand new adult, and I wasn't physically thrown at the facility, but I was thrown by my dad. And I think what helped me mentally survive the program was always repeating to myself, at least I don't have to live with those two people at home. Like, at least I'm not under their control directly right now. Anything's better than that. So I gaslight myself into not panicking that I was in the facility. But I missed my friends so much. And for about a year straight, I cried every morning. 5 minutes on the way to breakfast, 5 minutes on the way back to the walk from breakfast. I would sob hysterically because I missed my friends so much.
I totally understand that. I made a lot of friends when I was there, and a lot of them are no longer with us. A lot of them. It's really, really messed up. But
I'm so sorry.
a lot of them are addicted. You know, either do drugs or they're gone, or they're just like so damaged by it that they can't function in society. I mean, I can function in society, but I'm pretty fucking damaged.
Me too.
Let's see. So you got Did they do seminars there?
They did, and being
Did,
somebody who
like
like, go ahead.
like orientation, discovery, focus, all of those?
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about those. What are your experiences with the seminars? Did you make them
So
through the first time?
yeah, I did, because I did not want any 6-week delay in getting back home. And that's what happens if you choose out. You are pushed back in the program 6 weeks. And being somebody who, like I alluded to earlier, like I live my heart on my sleeve. Like I'm always like very vocal about where I stand on things, and I always want to be like living by what's right. I was really interested in the content of the seminars. I didn't understand why they wanted us to share vulnerably in front of everybody. I didn't understand that at all, because not everybody was there from like a traumatic experience. And even though my trauma was neglect and abuse from my parents, that's not kosher at the program to talk about. That your parents are like your God there. So it's like sinning to say, oh, your parents are the reason why you're upset. It has to be something on the outside. It has to be, oh, my friends did drugs, so I did drugs. Like, I just never understood what trauma was. They just made it sound like we're being fake, and we have to stop being fake and get in touch with our true inner child. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not fake, so I'll show you how I'm in touch with my child. So I literally did everything that they said, regardless. Like, I didn't even question it. And I think that part of why I'm like also having a hard time functioning in society isn't just hearing the stories of all the other girls' trauma. It was that I forced myself to place complete trust in these people who were making me a victim of the system, and like unquestioningly inflicting punishment on me, even when they could tell my intentions were pure. Um, it was really, really sad. And I think I, like I said, like I had really strong boundaries, and I knew who I was growing up. And I lost the ability to have boundaries with people. Like, I'm worried something bad will happen if I tell somebody that that it's time for them to go home, or like it's time for them to like stop talking. Like, I have a hard time cutting people off, and like I get really mad at myself when I can't articulate, and if I do have to say no, like I will force myself to put up a boundary, but then I'll be really upset about it after. Like I'll do the thing because I know it's right to like and let's boundary, but then I'll feel so sad. Like as soon as somebody reacts with disappointment, I go, I'm so sorry. Because to disappoint people in the program was like really scary. When you're faced with like small, tiny decisions being life or death, like you're in the free world or not, based on a couple mistakes you can make, you want to make sure you're people pleasing. And I don't socially people please, but in a way, I like architect situations such that I'm not going to be a burden, like ahead of time. So I'm not like, I don't say yes to everything, and I do like have a lot of attitude, but I protect myself by just like trying to stay out of the way ahead of time.
Okay. Um. So you didn't attend PC1, PC2, or PC3, and
I
that's
attended PC1. My parents did come to that. They put no effort in. We did go to PC2 in Atlanta, Georgia. I almost, okay, let's just say I had a panic attack that I did not know what a panic attack was until I went to PC2, because of how cold my parents were to me, and we were in this place. I did not know what to do with my body, like where to go, where to comfort myself. Like they had the hotel room to themselves. I wasn't really allowed to leave the premise. When we had a fight and they were like insulting my character and insulting my personality, I literally like had a breakdown, because I was like, what's my goal here? Why am I putting in the work and they're not? And they're just in the same place as when we started. When you're at the program, you dream up of parents who just like love you. I know we all did, because the first parent child seminar, PC1, we all did our hair. Like we got up really early and all did each other's hair to make sure we looked really nice for our parents so they would accept us. I know for sure that that was a strong desire we all had. So to not be accepted and be rejected by my parents, and they did things along the way on those like 4 days we were there. Like they knew I wanted to go to church so bad, but they made me leave early so I couldn't get communion because they wanted to be early to the seminar the next or that morning. And so like they left literally 2 minutes before I was about to get communion just to be like 10 minutes ahead of schedule. It was really, really sad. And like instead of spending extra quality time with me, my dad on the last day chose to do like a business meeting with somebody. Like he used the flight to Atlanta as like a way to like make more money and like see a client. And so we spent like the whole day like entertaining his client and making sure like my dad was getting mentored by him and stuff. And it was like he didn't focus on me at all. So I really learned my parents didn't care about me there, and I wish I could have left. But I really like I had never struggled with suicide, but that was a night where I felt like the room was spinning. It didn't feel like suicidal, but it felt like how you would feel if you were suicidal. Like, this is the end of the rope. As far as I know, no other plan is going to work. There's literally nowhere for me to go. My parents don't want me. My aunt and uncle, or my aunt is like off limits now. And I don't want to go back to the school. So even though I didn't have suicidal ideation, I have the same feelings as a suicidal person. I'm confident. Because I just like looked at the moon and I was like, here we are. This is the end. I'm either gonna go in the bathtub face down or like get through this somehow.
Yeah.
And I decided to just get through it.
So you went, okay.
I'd been in the program for a year by that point when I realized my parents didn't care about me still.
So you were there a total of 2 years?
20 months, yeah.
I was there. I was at mine 22 months. Okay.
Yep. The first like 4 or 5 months go by really slow, and then after that, you're in a rhythm, and it just all the months are the same.
Yeah.
Like there's a couple distinguishing factors in the beginning, then everyone just knows who you are, and there's nothing new, and you're just left to die and like repeat the same day over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, some people that I've actually interviewed like actually got so used to the structure that they actually came back after they graduated because they just wanted to be back in that structure.
Yeah.
They're just so like brainwashed and just like because that's what the seminars and everything is doing is brainwashing, and that's why it works. That's why the brainwashing works because they control
It does work.
aspect of your life. There.
It's true. Now, I wasn't at first sure when you said we're going to talk about how you functioned after. I wasn't sure if I had anything to share specific about that, but I just realized I really did. I had a year of really severe acute PTSD, but it didn't start for about 8 months after I left. It's weird. Like I had 8 months where no triggers, and then all of a sudden they hit all at once, and I was triggered for a full year anytime I saw something that looked like the program. I don't know if you had that experience, but I have a couple examples that are really interesting. And if anybody was to take away anything from this podcast, and like if you were to like put a teaser out or like fast forward to this part, it would be this part.
Okay, yeah, I know a lot of people. It depends on when it hits them. For me, it didn't happen until actually recently, and it's been fucking like over. It's been a really long fucking time. I went there in January 23rd, 2007. January 23rd, 2007 is the day I got there. And then, but yeah, it's been a long time, and it just recently hit me. So it hits you like 8 months afterwards. Sometimes it hits people right after they get out. Sometimes it hits them like a few years down the line. Sometimes it's like a month. But for everybody, it's different. But there's always a point where it just like, it'll either like hit them and you're like, holy shit, I actually went through some crazy ass, like super crazy shit. Or they'll be like, oh, I went through some crazy shit, but it's whatever. I have a decent life now, and I'm just not trying to fun. There's people like that too that don't even want to be interviewed because they just don't want to talk about that because they just have moved on from that, and that's totally fine. I respect that.
Yeah.
But
For
also,
me, it didn't meaningfully hit me till maybe a few years ago. Same.
yeah,
The stuff I'm about to share with you was not something I consciously realized. It was very much a trauma response, very much visceral, very much something I was not aware of what was happening to my body. We had gone through a riot May 2005, just under a month into my program. Some people broke out and rioted and made noise and tried to run away, something like that. They weren't just trying to run away, but some of them did. They were trying to make a lot of chaos and commotion and rebel. And during that time, the dorm moms, which were the guards, had radios on their radios on their belts, and we could all hear the broadcast of the yells and the breaking glass and stuff. That wasn't even the worst part. During that time, the alarms went off, and the alarms were the weirdest sound. I can't even do them. They go up like a full octave in like a very deep tone while having like a screaming tone at the same time. So it sounds like a nuclear warning type of alarm. It was very serious. It sounds like head for shelter. There's like a hurricane type of alarm. It's very startling, and it was right in your ear. These echoey, tiny tile hallways. And I can feel the alarm in my throat, and I can feel it pounding my chest, and I can hear my ears throbbing. And I fainted within like 2 minutes of standing in line. It was like at 1 a.m. and they had us go in line formation, and I fainted. My only time in life I've like fainted or passed out. I passed out from all the intensity. And it was about 8 months after the program, I went to an internship that was designed to be like an academy. So a lot of similar stuff. You live in the dorms, you have a cafeteria, you go to lectures. There was a lot of overlap in the visual experience of that place that hit me. But my first night at this internship, there was a band, and while the band was playing, an alarm went off, a big fire alarm went off, and for some reason the band continued playing, and I did not consciously know that I had a trigger reaction to alarms. But out of nowhere, when I heard this alarm during the concert, I started shaking uncontrollably. I started crying, and I fell to the floor. And this happened maybe 4 different times in the course of the next 4 months. I would hear an alarm. One time it was like a football buzzer, and I was just walking, and I fell to the ground shaking. And one time it was my roommate's alarm. All my roommates had to change their alarm tone because my roommate had an alarm as her wake up alarm on her phone. And I woke up to shaking and crying without even realizing what was going on. So I think I was really scared when I passed out, and I just didn't want to admit it. In addition to it being alarms, we, during the internship, went to a ballet, and we all took a bus. For some reason, we got on this bus. That's how we transported the short, like, 1/8 of a mile from the dorms to the school part. And they brought the bus, like, doors right up to the door of the building so you couldn't escape. And so we got on that multiple times a day, and we were yelled at on the bus to make sure we weren't looking out the window. Something about going
internship, or this was back at the school?
Back at the school, that's what they yelled at us about. So when we left the ballet, fast forward a year later at the internship, we got on the bus all together in like a line, just like at the place. And for some reason, I just remembered it felt like I was sitting down to go be taken to the dorms. And 2 of my roommates by that point knew what I was going through. They had seen me shake and cry over the alarm clock and stuff like that. And they just silently knew I was struggling, because as soon as I stepped on that bus, I started shaking and crying, and I fell into a bus seat. And Brooklyn and Katie, they came and hugged me and held me and stuff for like a couple minutes. They didn't even have to ask. They just knew it was like a trauma response from the program. being on that bus was like really scary. Like to think I was back there, like I was genuinely like overcome with fear and dread. So my body remembered all of my trauma even before my brain recognized it was trauma. I didn't even know what trauma was. I was just scared out of my mind. And like I would just be walking to the internship office from the dorms, which is like it's like an 8th-mile walk. And I would see a girl like braiding her hair, and I would be like, no, 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 because that's what you do when you fall from upper levels to lower levels. You have to braid your hair. So I would, no, 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 don't braid it. If I saw like a simple braid, I would also freak out. And then one time I saw two people walking on the sidewalk, and it looked like they were walking one behind the other. And seeing anything that reminded me of the line structure also made me just immediately burst into tears. I had no explanation for it. I was immediately so scared. I was like, don't walk in line formation. You're free. Like, I don't know. These like little triggers. Oh, and the cups. It was like, but it was right before the alarms. Right before the alarm thing, the fire alarm. We were at the cafeteria, and I got one of the cups out of the cafeteria. Those like plastic cups that are like kind of shaded like olive green or yellow or clear. I don't know. 90s cups to fill like with water. And for some reason, looking at that stack of cups in the dishwashing carton made me like so sad and scared all of a sudden. I didn't shake, but I was like immediately like I just like jumped away from the cups because it felt like I was in the cafeteria again. Like I was immediately having a flashback to being in the cafeteria. Anything that reminded me of that place, I had a very strong physical reaction to. It was pretty scary.
Is it still like that for you, or has it gotten better?
No, I did go to like a on-campus counselor, and he said what you're having is called acute PTSD, which is more intense and short-lived. However, even though I don't have trigger responses to that, anytime that I am triggered by anything scary, I do cry right away, which is not something I did in high school. Like I didn't cry anytime there's like a miscommunication or like I'm afraid of like, I don't know. Anytime I'm afraid, I cry, and it's so unhelpful. I can't function, and it's still to this day like if I feel like a little threatened on the street, it doesn't even have to be something serious. If it feels in my gut like a threat, I don't just use it as information to make a better decision about the situation. I just start crying. It's like very unhelpful. It's definitely changed my neurochemistry to such a degree that like if I'm triggered, I have to stop the activity I was doing. Like I can't actually complete anything because I'll just keep crying on and off throughout the thing. Normally, if I'm not triggered by anything, I don't have like a mood issue, for example. Like I'm pretty stable. I'm usually pretty happy-go-lucky. I don't overly plan for disaster. I just kind of like throw myself in, and I love participating. I love people. I love interacting. I love singing to my dogs. Like I'm a pretty, not even keel, but like I'm pretty passionate and happy. So when these things happen, it makes me seem like I'm bipolar or something, but it's not that. People get like warded off from me by these things. So it's making people not really like want to be my friend and kind of scared of me a little bit because I'll go from like, hey, everybody should join the Krav Maga we're doing at work today. It's at 1. I heard we're having like a guest instructor. I didn't know what we were doing for self-defense, but this was this year. I didn't know what we were doing. I just knew I love martial arts. I'm excited. Like everybody in the office, come do this at 1. Make sure to get lunch. Like I was really excited. And then I saw him bring fake guns into the circle, and I immediately knew I wouldn't be able to participate. I've never been confronted by a gun. I've never had to defend myself with a gun. I've never shot a gun. But for some reason, seeing a fake gun gave me like a really bad gut feeling. Like I didn't want people to pretend to point a gun at me and for me to pretend to defend myself. I thought that was too dark for me. This was all very unconscious. I just immediately burst into tears and had to leave. Like I couldn't even start the class. Like, I just went and hid from everybody so they didn't know I was crying. But I cried for like half an hour. It's, if I just for a moment feel unsafe, I start crying. And it's like, this happens so often now. Like, I don't know. And I'm in a pretty safe life. So I need some neuro feedback or EMDR still. I think because I'm so easily brought to tears.
Yeah, EMDR. Only thing is, I started that, and then my doctor quit, and then she opened up my trauma, and then she's like, "Oh, I can't help you." I'm just like, "What the fuck is wrong with people?"
It makes it way worse. My friend said that she took a long break during her treatment, and she was having crazy nightmares for like 40 days.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up. But yeah, it works. You just have to like work through everything. But yeah, it's pretty useful.
Yeah.
What would you say the hardest part about being at Academy at Ivy Ridge was, and how did you deal with it? If you had to pick one thing.
Never being believed from somebody who always has deep convictions and values the truth. Never being believed, always being doubted, always being gaslit for 20 months straight, never having a single ally who believed me, especially an adult. It forced me to submit myself as a very inferior person to authority figures that I didn't even trust myself. Never being believed was a very scary experience, and it caused me immense stress.
Okay, and how did you deal with it in the program?
I made an amendment to always tell the truth no matter what. Got me into trouble a lot there. But I wanted to show the staff that I've never lied. Like, I wanted my actions to match my words, so I also made sure to live a very, like, good life. So my defense mechanism to never being believed was to preemptively tell on myself, to preemptively overshare. Oversharing is something that I never struggled with before the program, but I have been an oversharer since because I'm so terrified of being called a hypocrite or a liar that I always have to divulge like every aspect. If I have a complaint about somebody, I always have to start with like, now this is a good person, but because like I never want to share my perspective as it is. I always feel like I need to qualify it with like good substance. I can't like just freely be believed. That actually has stuck with me. The way that I solved it there, I haven't really stopped. I mean, I do try to like share my experiences without justifying it, but the oversharing in general, it still kind of is there.
Okay. And what happened after you got out of the program? Like let's go through that.
I did live with my parents for the 8 months working up to the internship. I worked 3 jobs. I was a very hard worker. I got a 4.0 in community college. I made a whole ton of friends. I was very functional. I went running a lot. I ate a lot of good food. I always prioritized my friendships. I had people come pick me up. Like, I wasn't scared to reach out to friends. I would call people, leave messages, like, very lovingly. I would always have people on the phone. And I didn't feel like I was doing it to distract myself. I was genuinely really happy to be back. My parents were stressing me out, though, and they were constantly complaining to me about me and complaining to each other about me in a way I could hear. And I just didn't feel like I belonged at home, but I did build my life that year, those 8 months in like a very functional way. And I frequently look back and like wish I still had that because during the last months of the program on my own, made a lot of like strong intentions for myself. And I was like very present for myself. I don't know, like sometimes when I have just gone through stress, I will like keep stressing and not let myself relax. It's not intentionally to avoid having to sit with my thoughts, but like I'm overly functional as a response to like I literally can't stop or like I will die.
Yeah. Okay. So after your internship, so do you live by yourself now? Like what happened after you left your parents' house? Or how did you?
I went to the dorms after I left my parents' house, and then ever since I was always living in like a house or apartment with at least one more roommate, if not two. I've almost always had multiple roommates. I did get married in 2012, which was like 5 years after the internship, or 5 years after I left the Bad Academy, I call it, and 1 year after I graduated college. And that was a shit show because I married somebody who was very self-absorbed because I was used to trusting people who seemed very confident, who made me work for their love. That was a big thing. Like if I had to work for your love, like you're definitely the one. Um, so that was the only time I lived with like one other person until I moved to Seattle. So I've always had multiple roommates, and like I always need multiple people available. I don't know. It hasn't been until like 2 years ago that I can stomach just living with even stomach the idea of like being on my own for a few days here.
Yeah.
Very like allergic to loneliness because I never really had that peaceful rest of just being home knowing your parents love you. I've always been like at war with my home life. But moving to Seattle, I've very consciously like tried to make my home a sanctuary and like constantly try to make it reflect who I am. But I always have to have roommates.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely feel that. I deal with loneliness a lot, so I can definitely feel that. Okay. Let's see. The riot thing. What happened that day? Can you walk us through that whole riot? What do you remember about that?
We were in the dorms, so we couldn't see. We could just hear. If people want to look it up, I'm pretty sure it was like somewhere online. It was like May 15th-ish, 2005, May 2005. All I know was maybe it was like 10, 12 people, mainly on the guys' side, just rioting. I don't know what they broke. I don't know how many people of that group tried to escape, but every single one was brought back and punished. Nobody successfully ran.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay. Let's see. If you could go back in a time machine and not go through that place, would you do it, and why?
I would. I would choose to live with my aunt, and I do believe that I would have had the skills as a young adult to rely on myself, to cook, to actually fall in love with doing household things because I didn't really have much household experience literally until college, and I still don't have a hunger to learn how to cook. Um, and I wish that I would have back then. I think it would have kept me from having bad neurochemistry. I I really think that it's ruined me. I wish that I tried to apply for foster care or something back in the day. I usually say like I wouldn't try to relive my life because I would have to grow up with those people again. But if I could have known I had rights as a child, I did not know there were rights. I did not know that there were laws to protect children. I didn't know that if I had gone to a trusted adult, there could have been a good thing to happen to me. My parents like think that they're really good at everything they do. They see my weakness as like a huge quirk. Instead of like valuing anything good that I do, they make me feel very weird about being me. I can't explain it. Like without seeing them, I feel like I'm very normal, but they if they've ever talked to me, they make me feel so small. And I've always been successful in my relationships and my job, in whatever I put my mind to, athletic stuff, anything really. And if I'm not good at the athletic stuff, I still at least participate hard and make the team better by cheering them on or whatever. I'm always like a team player, so for them to just look at me and like you can feel it in their eyes that they really feel like they're looking at an absolute loser. It's the weirdest experience, and it's something that's really hard to shake.
I can definitely relate. Is it your belief that these schools should or even could be fully regulated, or do you think that they should always be shut down?
They should be shut down, and here's why. I read in the book about the help at all costs, the troubled teen industry, help at any cost. At the end, it talks about the schools can't operate as therapeutic boarding schools because they would have to have accreditation for they would have to have like licensed therapists, and there are regulations in place. When they call themselves a school, it's immediately a scam because in the school you don't even have to be a school, and you can say you're a boarding school for the future and like for wellness and for troubled teens. You can say all of that because there's no regulation for schools. And just because you call yourself a school doesn't mean that the state has to know about you, and doesn't mean that it has to put you through an accreditation process. So I think as they're labeled a school, they haven't hired the right type of people to actually help. And I think that because they're a school, they're not mandated court-ordered stuff. This is a second point in the book where if you're actually the way that juvie started is the court has to order you based on evidence that you need to go to juvie, and there's like a set amount of time, and because you're court ordered, you know in advance that you're going to be sent there, so there's not the traumatic like you're being kidnapped against your will. Because I don't think it's fair for parents to just decide that the child is troubled when they haven't ever done anything with the law that would even give attention, that would even put them in front of a judge.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that they could even be fully regulated, in my opinion.
Yeah, there are treatment centers for specific things like addiction. They are regulated. They treat the people well. I know this. They give them like really expensive, like nutritious food. All of the people in that person's life get letters, and it's not just limited to the parents. So I know that that's more regulated as it is. The whole idea that they're going by schools just to scam people makes the entire thing worthless, in my opinion. And like you just said, don't even bother regulating it.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. All right. Do you have anything else to share to add to your story, or anything you might tell a parent thinking about sending their kid to a place like this?
I mean, if you've made it through my whole story, and know that there's any amount of goodness in your child that's redeemable in any way, just encourage that. Don't be a piece of shit and send your kids somewhere that they could get seriously hurt.
Okay. All right. Well, with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And if you've watched this so far in the video, please like the video. It helps with the algorithms. And with that being said, you guys have a wonderful evening or day wherever you guys are at, and we will see you next time. All right. Bye.